I think if it's a salesperson who's listening to this, right, or if it's a founder, really, I think a really important piece of my story and Sphere Rocket's story is to understand who you're getting into a relationship with. A lot of people trying to get into relationships with someone who's similar to them, and it creates too much one way or the other. A really cool thing about me and Justin that we don't see is on the outside, I look like I am really outgoing and the big gambling man and the funny hat. But internally, I'm like, hit the brakes. And then Justin is the opposite. From the external side, he looks like he's a bit, passive and blah, blah, blah. But he's like, yo, how much money can we borrow and throw at the house? Like, let's roll. You know what I mean? So a lot of times I'm talking him down and a lot of times he's talking me up, right? But that's a really good relationship because we can balance each other out, and it leads to a lot of arguments. And Justin argue with each other a lot. And we set up daily meetings with each other intentionally so that we can argue with each other. A lot of people want to avoid those hard conversations. I think the reason why we've thrived, we've gone from 3 million a year 3 million in high ticket sales when I got here to 10 million in ARR.
Welcome to another episode of Founders Growth. My name is John Hill. I'm the founder of Adapted Growth. Today we have a very old friend of mine who I'm excited to have on the show. His name's Moose Reed. I've known Moose since back in the day when we were just selling on pipelines and helping people get programs. And he's had this very cool path about staying in the high ticket space much longer than I did and finding a way towards being a partner in a company now called Sphere Rocket. And Moose has had such phenomenal success in sales that whenever he left whatever he was working on, he really could have gone and done anything, right? But found this lane with Sphere Rocket. And so we're going to talk to him about his path, about how he got here, why this stuff matters, and what he's learned along the way. But Moose, did I miss anything in there? Anything you want to kind of call out or highlight?
You hit the nail on the head. Appreciate you having me as always, man. Great to connect again. I know it's been a couple months since we've caught up, so just excited to talk to you and hang out, man.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on. So,
of course,
one of the things that I talk to people about a lot, right? A lot of salespeople is around the idea that I personally think that if you have some sales chops and some sales savvy, becoming a founder is a very natural progression, right? Natural part of the process, right? When you were leaving the sales team, the sales recruiting that you were doing there, were you thinking about all the options? Were you in a scramble to try to find something else to do? Like, how were you feeling when you were leaving that space before you moved to where you are now?
It's an interesting question. I think as a salesperson, right, it's always on your mind of, can I do this better than the person who I'm doing it for? Right. So naturally, you always want to evolve into some type of business owner. You're always thinking about different streams of income while you're selling. Right. I heard this talk by Mark Cuban when I started in sales many years ago. Right. And Mark Cuban says, it's important. He says, if I started from scratch again, he says, I don't know if I could become a billionaire. He says, becoming a billionaire takes a lot of luck. But he says, I know for a fact I could become a multimillionaire, right? And the way that I would become a multimillionaire is I would work 2 jobs. The first one is a high commission sales job, right? That increases my upside. But I would also bartend at night because people don't realize that you have to protect your downside, and commission-based sales has a large downside, right?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
So I heard that advice early in my career and I really took it home. So when we met, John, a lot of people don't realize that working in high ticket sales was my commission-based gig, right? Actually an area sales manager for, a large company, a $4 billion sales org called Regis, right? Regis was high salary and then bonus, a very low commission, right? But high salary and bonus. And I'd sort of maximize my income. Ironically enough, I staffed 2 virtual assistants while I was at Regis to do the majority of my job for me, right? I was probably spending 10 hours a week in corporate work. And then my full-time job, right, even though it didn't perceive to be, was high ticket sales with coaching sales when we met, right?
Really?
I was working.
We've never talked about this before.
No. And a lot of people didn't see the Regis side of it, right?
That's fair. Yeah.
And I had gotten recruited. This is why I left coaching sales, right? I
Mhm.
had been recruited to my first sales director role. So I was the number one rep at Regis out of 473 reps, right? And then I was working commission based and high ticket sales.
Okay.
When I was approached for my first sales director role,
Mhm.
I was offered a salary of 130, right? And that my top year working both jobs was like 150,
Mhm.
right? So I was like, yo, I'm willing to take a haircut to put my concentration towards one job. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? This was to go to a sales director in international logistics, right? I took that job. I love the guy that I worked for. I really consider him a mentor in my life, right? But I hated the industry, right?
Oh, man, I've been there.
Talking trade lanes between Shanghai and LA versus our world of high ticket sales and getting people emotional, etc., wasn't my cup of tea, right?
Yeah.
So Justin, the founder at Sphere Rocket, him and I always stayed connected. I built out his sales team while I was at coaching sales.
Okay.
We always stayed connected, and he poached me away from that gig to go and be the sales director for him, right?
Okay.
So of course, I thought about, going into start something of my own, right? Of course, I thought about could I be a sales rep and have more of an upside? Justin poached me. He kept my base the same at the time,
Mhm.
right? He gave me accelerated commissions versus where I was at because I got paid commissions quarterly in logistics, right?
Mhm.
And just to be frank, with my experience on Wall Street, John, right? I have always been very timid to take a gamble on myself. I'm not afraid to admit that,
That's interesting.
right?
Okay.
The emotion of gaining chips is a lot lower of emotion for me than losing chips. So I've always said that I'm a much better Robin than I am Batman. You know?
This is fascinating. Okay, please keep
Yes.
talking. This is a
So
weird take for me to hear from you. Okay.
because of that, when he poached me, I sort of said, "Hey, here's my path where I'm at." Right? I had gotten partnership, I had gotten equity at coaching sales. Right?
Mhm.
I explained to him the upside of that, the downside, and everything in between, and sort of said, "This is what my career path would look like if I went into the world of SaaS or whatever." Right? And we came to a conclusion, right, where it was like, if you hit XYZ, I'd be willing to give up XYZ. Right? With the
Hmm.
foundation and what was on the offer, I was like, I
Yeah.
think I can do that. Let's make the transition, you know?
Okay, man. I have. I would like to go back to the thing that you said a second ago that
Yeah,
you've never really felt comfortable taking a big bet on yourself, right? Like I see,
yeah,
like my perception of Moose is you're always the guy out there taking big bets on yourself, right?
yeah,
And so how and being in sales, it is chaotic, right? Like, I mean,
yeah.
we're all seen as these like huge pillars of endless confidence and resilience and everything. And like, I'm always weirded out whenever people are like, "How'd you get so confident?" I'm like, "Who were you talking to? I'm not a confident person, right?" How does that? How do you bucket that? Like, where is Moose comfortable with chaos and big gambles, and where not? Like, have you found
Mm.
clarity on where that line is for you?
Man, this might sound super selfish, John. Right? This might sound super selfish, but I'll say it the first thing that comes to mind, right? It's almost like if it's somebody's dollars that we're putting on the table, right? I will
Mhm.
go and work my ass off for that person.
Okay.
Right? But if it's my own, if you look at my portfolio, right, I'm super safe. I'm in index funds and you know what I mean? My financial
That is
advisor's always
interesting.
like, go heavier into equity, right? I'm like, nope, put me in bonds.
Couldn't
Put me
do
in
it.
bonds. You know what I mean? Which is crazy, dude. I'm 34 years old, right? I should be
Yeah.
willing to take more of a
You have
risk.
time.
Um,
Yeah.
but that's sort of it. So,
So, okay, I have a side question
yeah,
to go off topic. I know you're a big college football fan, right?
yeah.
Do you bet on college football?
I do, but this goes this goes very much in hand, John, right? My Justin, my CEO and founder, he'll always bust my balls, right? Because
Okay.
he's like, yo, why do you bet so little? Why are you betting $10 a game? Like,
Oh,
what's
because you
the
just need
point
to
of
feel
that? I'm
invested.
like, I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I won $200 last year and you were down $5,000. So who's ahead?
Okay,
You
so
know,
that's fascinating. So a little skin in the game is enough for Moose. He doesn't need big
it's
skin in
enough
the
for me
game.
just to get the taste. Yeah.
That is fascinating. Okay.
Yeah. So,
So when you're
but
going
what's
through
interesting, man, I can't figure this out. Maybe this is a talk that I need to have with the psychologist or whatever, right? At Spear Rocket, we've had a lot of situations where we've had to put all of the eggs in one bet. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
When we threw our first internal event, I think I think our bank account had like $400,000 in it,
Mhm.
right? And we went and spent $600,000 on our internal event. And it was like, we better go and sell from this damn thing. Otherwise, the business is done. You know,
Yeah.
I was just telling the story this morning and we did like 1.5 million in sales. And it was like, oh, fuck, this was awesome. Sorry for the language.
No, you're
Right.
fine. Like, does that feel different? Like, because, I mean, sales is about testing and big fan of testing and, picking your winners solidly, not emotionally and everything. But in that kind of situation, and you and I connected whenever y'all were in the middle of your big event kind of hypothesis and like, is this where we put our focus? And that's when we
Yeah.
spoke last time. Like, does that not feel like the same kind of gamble? Does it feel differently? Or is it that
Yeah.
is it that put me in, watch me go kind of thing?
Like, it's almost like we just recruited John, the head of partnerships from ClickFunnels, a guy by the name of Ben Harris,
I saw
right?
your post about that actually.
And I
Yeah.
was like, Ben, why would you bet on us? Like, ClickFunnels is so much further ahead.
Mhm.
And he said something that I loved. I was like, you're hired when he said this, right? But he said, I want to bet on the jockey, not on the horse.
Whoa. That
And I
is
was like,
very
that's cool, dude.
interesting.
Right.
Okay.
So it's the same thing, right? When Justin last year, when we did we took out $1 million loan, right? Again, a lot of people didn't see the story, right?
Mhm.
We took out $1 million loan. Of that $1 million, we took 400 and went and sponsored events with it,
Okay,
right?
yeah. Mhm.
With that 400, we ended up doing 2 million in sales, right? Which was really cool.
Mhm.
But I said, Justin, take the million, be confident in taking the million, right?
Yeah.
And put me on the road. Watch what happens, right? But it wasn't my million. You know what I mean? It wasn't my
So
million liability.
so I have questions about this thing, right? Like
Yeah,
one I would like to talk. Do you think if the situation was different, if it was your name on the loan, right,
yeah,
and this was your baby, do you think you make your decision differently?
yeah. I do.
And
I do.
interesting.
And me and
Okay.
Justin talk about that all the time. Now that we're partners, right?
Yeah.
We have a lot of, we have insurance policies. We have key man insurance policies out on each other, right?
Yep.
We have a lot of different hedges in the business. But Justin talks about that all the time in sort of like a joking way. But we know it's true too, right? Where
Hmm.
if he passed, right, I would take over as the primary decision maker. And the decisions that I make would probably be a lot more hedged,
Yeah.
right? But I think if it's a salesperson who's listening to this, right, or if it's a founder, really, right, I think a really important piece of my story and Spear Rocket's story is to understand who you're getting into a relationship with, right?
100%, man.
A lot of
Absolutely.
people trying to get into relationships with someone who's similar to them, and it creates too much one way or the other. A really
Hmm.
cool thing about me and Justin that we don't see is on the outside, I look like I am really
You
outgoing
look
and the
you
big
look like
gambling
the
man
bull
and
in
the
the
funny
china shop.
hat,
Yeah.
right? Yes. But internally, I'm like, hit the brakes. And then Justin is the opposite, right? From the
Hmm.
external side, he looks like he's a bit, passive and blah, 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 right? But he's like, yo, how much money can we borrow and throw at the house? Like, let's roll. You know what I mean?
That
So
is
a lot of times
interesting.
I'm talking him down and a lot of times he's talking me up, right? It's just,
Hmm.
but that's a really good relationship because we can balance each other out and it leads to a lot of arguments, right? Me and
Yes.
Justin argue with each other a lot and we set up daily meetings with each other intentionally so that we can argue with each other, right?
Yeah.
a lot of people want to avoid those hard conversations. I think the reason why we've thrived, we've gone from 3 million a year 3 million in high ticket sales when I got here
Mhm.
to 10 million in ARR.
Which is I can appreciate the distinction between those 2 labels, right? And not a lot of other people who if you've not spent time in high ticket sales, there's a big difference between revenue and high ticket and ARR, right? Because
Yes.
usually these 2 paths do not lead to the same thing, right? And that's one of the weirdest parts about high ticket is everyone trying to shove things into a high ticket container so that way they can try to have some version of this high ticket pipeline kind of situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Changing topics for just a second. So
Yeah.
you said this thing about knowing who you're going into business with, right?
Yeah.
And I think I talk about this with some people that I got pretty lucky to work with some of the mentors and some of the people that I have, but then I was also thinking that they were so rare and unique that I had to go out on my own to go
Mhm.
do it my way and not have to compromise and different things like that. And what I love is you, because of who you are, you have this awareness of yourself that you didn't feel that pressure, right? So when you're going through and you're talking to Justin and you're negotiating kind of like this partnership and this ability to work together, you know how to negotiate. Obviously, you're a sales guy. I also know that you're passionate about the work that you do, right? It's not just about winning, it's not just about closing and stuff like this. So when you were going through the conversation with him, were you being the hard negotiator or were you just excited about the opportunity and you didn't really push for everything that maybe Moose would tell someone else to push for in that kind of situation?
So when I got started in the world of high ticket sales,
Mhm.
right? I'll give you sort of a nightmare story and it kind of comes back, right? I was with that company, Regis, that I told you about. I found
Yep.
high ticket sales, right? Let's say I was making 8 grand a month at Regis, right?
Mhm.
And then I found high ticket sales. I started part time in high ticket sales and I made 10 grand my first month, right? So I was doing both in tandem and I was like, oh my God, what is this industry? Right?
Yeah.
This is awesome. You know what I mean?
Enamored
Right?
instantly for sure. Yeah.
So, like everybody, what did I do? Right? I went full time into high ticket sales,
Yep.
right? We moved from Sarasota, Florida to Washington, DC. So our expenses went up by 40%. Then the marketing funnel tanked 60 days later. All of a sudden, I went from making 18 grand a month to like $2,000 a month, right?
Yep.
Dude, I went from my career path was working on Wall Street for BlackRock, right? To area sales manager at Regis to high ticket sales to being a server at Melting Pot,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like it was a mental collapse for me, you know? When I got back into coaching or high tech sales with coaching sales, et cetera, right? I picked my job back up at Regis. We moved back to Florida and I was double dipping for a while there,
Mhm.
right? So coming from logistics, the second time came back full time into high ticket sales, Justin was trying to poach me and I actually turned him down. Right. I was like, dude, I appreciate you. I'll keep coming to events and selling for you and we'll keep our relationship, but I don't want to get back into the world of small business. Right. He made me the
Yeah.
offer for a partnership. Right. He made me an offer for a salary plus commissions plus bonuses. Right. Plus overrides. I appreciate it, dude. I don't want to get back into the world of small business. You know what I mean?
So you were thinking that all the static, all the friction was that it was like small business and not
Mhm.
maybe some of the people in small business, right? Because like I
Yeah.
had to have a similar kind of awakening, right? Because like I put myself because I done the business thing with my old business partner and then I launched this business and wasn't really sure exactly what I was going to be putting myself out there yet. I just wanted to like help with growth and I
Yeah.
started doing high ticket selling and everything and I was thinking, well, because I know some really cool founders, everyone
Yep.
must be cool, high level, high thinking, caring about the right things and everything. And then I had to
Yep.
realize just how many people were not that, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
So,
In fact, the opposite, right? It's
yes,
rare, you know?
it's rare to find people, like, worth doing business with. Yeah, it's tough,
Yeah.
especially at that level, right? Because, like, there is this thing of, if you get that opportunity,
Yep.
go work your ass off, right? If you're spending half the time looking over your shoulder to make sure that the agreement is good and that all these other things are happening, right? Like, you're diluting your focus, right? And as
100%.
as salespeople, one of the things that, like, I don't think other people understand is, like, just because it's a sales role doesn't mean that it is winnable. right? That you can like earn off
100%.
of it and
Yes.
stuff like this, right? And so then
Yeah.
partnership is even more than that, you know? And so like there's a level of sales of like we don't really know what we're getting into. But if you can sell, you will have people going around being like, "Hey, come partner with me, come partner with me, come partner with me." And half of those people are like sinking ships, right? Like
100%.
nothing going on. You could have saved a whole bunch of time and heartache if you had just like stayed selling whatever it was you're selling and stuff like that. How did
What
you know?
99% of people, you know this, right? What 99% of people are looking for in a partner, right,
Yes.
is cheap labor, right?
Uh, yeah.
Is
So
cheap labor.
what what was it that your partner was saying or doing that made you realize that like, hey, this would be worth your time, you could put full focus into it, you wouldn't have the same sort of concerns and ideas? Like was there one moment when you were like, okay, yeah, I want to try?
So the big moment for me, right, and they would I wish this made more sense with the story. The big moment for me was after I turned down the offer at Sphere Rocket. This was November of 23,
Hmm.
right? We're now in October of 25. So November 23, he made the offer, and I said, "Justin, thanks, but no thanks. Keep inviting me to avoid events, blah, blah, blah." That next Thanksgiving week, I had 3 deals in international logistics. The operations said that they weren't interested, and this company was doing $100 million a year in sales, right?
Oh, so it just
Operations
wasn't
said they
big
weren't.
enough?
Huh? Uh, it wasn't necessarily that they weren't big enough. It was just operations carried like
Been there.
if they're moving frozen product from Shanghai to LA, we don't want to deal with the frozen product. There's too much risk
That's fair.
because it wasn't defined terms. They could change it on any deal. So you'll get where I'm going,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
There were
Hmm.
3 deals that were turned away the week of Thanksgiving, right? Which prevented me from hitting my next bonus, which would have increased my income by 25% on the year,
That's wild,
right?
dude. Like,
And literally, when they got declined all in the same day, I called Justin and was like, "Yo, is that offer still available? Like, I'm coming over." Yeah,
dude, I mean, but that just kind of goes back to like we don't always know what we're getting into. Like I know a guy, he made a job hop because they poached him and they told him everything he wanted to hear, and they were like, oh
yeah,
yeah, like uncapped commissions, rah rah rah, and then it's like, okay, great,
sure,
he makes the jump, he goes over, he leaves his benefits, right, he leaves his recurring commissions, and like, oh god, we're so glad to have you here. You can onboard one new client a month,
yeah. Like
uncapped
what?
commissions, but we can only bring on one new
As long as we
client per
got the
month.
room.
Exactly, right? And so it's like, right? And I
Yeah,
really appreciate the thing that you said earlier, right? If you don't care about the audience, the market, the people that you're selling to, right? And I had the same thing whenever I was selling to surgeons. I didn't want to hang out with surgeons. I thought they were all like a little taking themselves way too seriously. But
yeah,
and so then it was easy to opt out. It was easy to like not want to go spend the time that it takes to build those relationships so that way you actually have the insights that lead to the other conversations and everything, you know?
yes,
And so it's like you gotta have leadership you trust, right? Or else
yep,
you're looking over your shoulder the whole time and you're not gonna get anything done. You have to care about the people that you're selling to, right? Which is like the weirdest thing. And I'm sure that there's gonna be some people who were listening to 2 sales guys talking about you need to care about the customer. And like
and be like,
all the guys who were trying so hard to just be jaded brass tack sales guys, like reading
yeah,
the Wolf of Wall Street and be like, you don't gotta care at all. And everyone else is like, isn't it just easier if you care though? Like it's just so much easier. And then the other thing is like you just have to believe that the product actually helps, is valid, drives some value and stuff, right? So
yeah,
can we talk a little bit about Sphere Rocket itself, right? Because I think a lot of
sure,
people get caught up, especially founders, right? Who they start off small and you don't know anything when you're a brand new founder, right? You don't even know everything you don't know, right? And so you have
yeah.
people and they're telling you to go build everything yourself. You'll have people that'll tell you to go hire a fleet of VAs, and you'll see a lot of people get stuck between these two goalposts and everything. Can you talk a little bit about founders that you've worked with and how they should be thinking about bringing on help and delegating things and building a team if they decide to do so? Like, what are the inflection points? When does it make sense?
Yeah, so I think a couple things, right? At Spear Rocket, we serve 2 ends of the spectrum, right? We have clients like, like Cole Gordon, right? Or Gym Launch. Gym Launch is a client of ours,
Mhm.
right? Where they are already doing millions of dollars a year in sales and they get a huge team with us, right? Awesome, right? But then the other side of the spectrum is a solopreneur and they need to get their first hire,
Yeah.
right? Is that fair? What I think a lot of the earlier businesses need to realize, right, is two things. The first one is that when you staff somebody, right, it's not a forever commitment, right? And Justin talks to me about this all the time, right? When he was making a bet on me to pay me X amount of dollars salary plus commission, blah, 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 right? If I came in and fucked something up and like wasn't holding to the standard that I told him I was going to do, it's not a multi-$100,000 year gamble, right?
Hmm.
It's a $10,000 gamble. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can cut that relationship at any point. You
Hmm.
know, if you're hiring a virtual assistant, it's not, let's say it's a $4 an hour virtual assistant, it's not a $7,000 a year gamble. It's a $600 gamble.
Now, okay, I would love to zero in on this for just a second, right? Because I've
Yep.
talked to hundreds of founders. I've talked to a lot of people that want to use VAs to offset some of their tasks, right? Lots of salespeople. Let's be honest about it.
Yep.
And I think that what happens is that it's super easy to bring on a VA and expect them to be trained. And
Yep.
why would they be, right? Especially if you're not
Yep.
going to pay a premium for a trained VA,
Yep.
right? Or go through one of these things. And then it's super easy to bring someone on, not train them, not coach them, put them under all kinds of performance pressure. And then when they burn out, blame them, not take the note, and then
Yeah.
just go looking for someone better, right?
Yeah.
Is is my perspective on the fact that that happens way too often valid, or do I just talk to too many people
No,
and it's not that big of a ding?
it's completely valid, John. And that's the second portion that I was going to bring up, right? That the second thing a business owner needs to learn is it's not about talent, right? It's something I talk to salespeople about all the time is if you want to grow from salesperson to sales director, right? If you had to grow the org without depending on sales talent, how would you do it? And if you can answer that question, that'll lead you to the result of getting you to sales director,
Yeah.
right? It's the same
Yeah.
thing with a virtual assistant. Same thing with a virtual assistant. Same thing with nearly any hire, right?
Hmm.
Except for your C suite. You're paying your C suite. I hate to say this, John, right? But you're paying your C suite to think, right?
100%. Right. Yeah. Right.
Outside of
Like,
your suite, you're paying them to do, right?
yeah, I agree with that.
So you have to tell them what to do, right? When I
And
hire,
that's I think the crux of it, right? Because
yep,
different people do this differently, right? And so I've always been curious, like, does Sphere Rocket help people build a process, or do you guys have
yeah,
locked and loaded processes? Or do you do the thing of like, okay, we're going to pull your process, good, bad, otherwise, right, out of you? Like, how do you fix that problem of getting the knowledge to the people that are doing the work, so that way there's less frustration, it's easier to get
yeah.
moving and stay in momentum, and actually get this person to where they're part of the team and not this just contractor that you're paying on the side.
It's a bit of a mix, right? Because we've staffed 9,000 virtual assistants across 4,000 different businesses, right?
Hmm.
We have internal visibility to see how John's virtual assistants is working versus Moose,
Okay.
right? But if I bring in another third party, a new client, right, their business is going to be different than John's and Moose's business, right?
100%.
So I
Yeah.
can't assume that the SOP that we've created for John and for Moose is going to be the same for Bob,
Hmm.
right? So we have a lot of templates that we follow, right? We give our clients a one-on-one coach, and then we give our virtual assistant an international coach, right?
Oh,
We're
this is
giving them a
interesting.
lot of templates to follow,
Hmm.
and then the client is reporting back to the one-on-one coach domestically so that we can adjust their SOPs together, right? And then the virtual meeting back with their international coach so that we can help them with their career growth.
Wow, dude, I love that. Right.
Yeah,
Because
it's kind of a hybrid model, and we had a good talk about this, right? So there's 3 different routes that you can get a VA. You can do it on your own.
mhm,
Benefit is that you could do it completely for free by going to websites like Fiverr, Upwork, Online
yep,
Jobs. The downside is if you're spending time recruiting a virtual assistant, you haven't yielded any new time for yourself,
yeah,
right? If you're spending time building out process from scratch, you haven't yielded any new time for yourself.
mhm,
You could go to a company, a traditional VA agency where they own the labor of the virtual assistant and the consumer is paying a scrape on their labor. Make sense?
yeah, mhm,
So maybe the VA is paid $4 an hour and the virtual assistant agency is paid $10 an hour.
yep, Hmm.
right? The problem is that virtual assistant works for multiple consumers. It's the only way that that company can
Yeah.
uh, concentrate their skill. But the second, because of that, the virtual assistant works for multiple consumers. They don't have a true job. That's when you hear nightmare stories of my VA is struggling to learn my social media. They're struggling to learn my script. Well, of course,
Yeah.
they're juggling 5 jobs at once, right?
Hmm.
So we're sort of a hybrid, right? Where we are able to charge less than the traditional agency, but we have to charge more than the free model, right?
Yeah.
But the virtual assistant doesn't work for us. So we're just giving the client all the resources that we have, et cetera. You know what I mean?
Interesting. So, okay, I'm going to zero in, right? So,
Yeah,
I've got some rapid fire questions, right? The first
sure.
one for you specifically, okay? If a founder is starting today, okay, and
Hmm.
they're new to being a founder, they're new to the idea of VAs and working with people and building a team, right? They're new to the idea of entrepreneurship. When would you tell them that it's time to start looking for some help? Like, are there certain milestones? Is it day one, go find someone so you can work with someone with low pressure and like beginning to kind of figure out how to lead? Like, what would Moose recommend to someone day one as a founder starting out, knowing nothing about delegation, SOPs, or any of these things we've been talking about?
So, John, I always try and undersell it, right? It would be super easy for me to be like, everybody get a VA. And gosh, I used VAs when I was in corporate, right? But just to try and keep the conversation as fair as possible, I think at pre-revenue, I think you're too early to staff.
Hmm. I
Fair,
agree. Yeah.
right? I don't think it takes a huge revenue threshold to staff. I think that if you went into a traditional business, 20 or 30% of all revenue is going to go back to labor costs, right?
Okay.
If I started a restaurant, whatever, usually higher than that in a brick and mortar, right?
Yeah. Labor's crazy high in restaurants.
So I think if you got to $10,000 a month, right? It's time to start considering to staff, right?
Interesting. Okay.
So let me pull this up for you. Hold on. Are you familiar with Dan Martell?
I am familiar. Actually, someone recommended that I try to get him to be on this show. Do you know Dan?
I don't know him personally.
Okay.
Kind of cool story. He opened for me last year when I spoke on stage. What I was like, Dan Martell's opening for me. Like, what do you mean?
Why? Like that's a nice little like feather in the cap. I'd have been pretty
That was
excited
cool.
about that.
That was
That is
cool.
very cool.
It was a good
Um,
connection.
so okay, so question then, right? Different
Yeah,
question, right? You're a sales guy, you know sales inside and out, right? And
yeah.
so this is kind of how I want to frame this question. Do you think it makes more sense to delegate things that you know super well and you can think about KPIs, you can think about planning, you can think about forecasting? Or do you take the other approach of like you keep the things you're good at, strong at, and you delegate everything else? What's core?
Yes.
What's Moose's core philosophy and thinking around that idea? Because I hear different people approach that differently.
Great question. Cool. So let me start here, right? The real question that you're asking me is what should I outsource first? Is that
Yeah,
fair?
yeah,
Right? So this is something that Dan Martell lives by. We treat buy back your time like our Bible. So with Dan Martell, right, he mentions there's what's called a replacement ladder in buy back your time, right?
okay,
It says the first position that you should staff, that any founder, any executive, anybody should staff is an assistant, right? He's explained that the ladder is cumulative. And where a lot of founders go wrong is they try and skip steps in the ladder.
hmm,
They should be trying to buy back their time, climbing the ladder and then replacing the next rung, right? So the first one being an executive assistant to get back their bandwidth.
interesting. Okay,
So what does an executive assistant do? I'll give you an example of things that Tracy did for me. She manages my email. She's my executive assistant, right?
hmm,
She does Operation Zero inbox. If you email me after this, John, you'll talk with Tracy in my inbox. You know what I mean?
yeah,
She got a property survey for me done this week so that I didn't have to sit on hold with the county, right? She booked doctor's appointments for me. She booked date night with me and my daughter last night, right? She does a lot of the things in my personal life where I just Tracy, do this, book my flight. You know what I mean?
that is interesting, right? Because I think a lot of people would feel because like I've done this for myself of like okay, I need a VA, I need an assistant for my work stuff,
Hmm.
right? Whereas I wouldn't even think about how to use an assistant on my personal, right? Because like to me, it's like personal, right? So but
Yeah.
personal versus work stuff. But you're
So
saying like just go find the things that take up time, whether personal or professional, and have
So
an
many
assistant
founders
work
are
on
like,
them.
I
That
have
is interesting.
ADHD. It's because you're trying to concentrate on sales. You're trying to concentrate
Yeah.
on marketing. You're trying to concentrate on deliverables. You're trying to please your wife. You're trying to please your kids, right? Get 20 hours a week back of mental bandwidth first, right?
Yeah.
Get that. I love sitting down with Tracy once a week for an hour. She's got 20 projects halfway finished, and then we can just sit down in that hour. We'll just crank projects across the finish line because I assigned her way too much. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
I love that.
Interesting. Huh.
But then once you have admin, then you hire delivery. So like at Sphere Rocket, that would be recruitment, right? You'll
Hmm.
never catch me interviewing a virtual assistant, right? In real estate, right? Transaction coordinator, someone who's pursuing people for their financial paperwork and blah, 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 right? Then you get into staffing marketing. You know this firsthand. A lot of times people try and skip rungs on the ladder and they say, I want to hire sales, and there's no leads coming in yet. It's like,
Yep.
who are sales going to call? Right?
Yeah.
Well, you need marketing generating leads. Then you hire sales. Now that you have departments, then you can hire leadership,
Hmm.
right? So the second piece to answer your question, right, is that Dan also references something called the buyback loop. He says there's a process in hiring, right? So you're saying, should I hire the things that I'm familiar with? Well, yes, you should. Because he says the first step in creating an SOP is to go through the pain of doing something yourself.
Oh, that's
That's
interesting.
this first step, right? You have to do that activity first yourself. You can't hire a salesperson who doesn't have a script and doesn't have a lead flow process, etc.
Yeah.
You have to figure out that script on your own. Then
100%.
once you've yielded X result, you audit what you're doing,
Hmm.
right? Once you audit it and you know it's going to create Y outcome, then you create an SOP and you can transfer that SOP to a new hire after you fill the seat. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
Dude, I
So
can't wait to read this book. I'm gonna go read this book, and I'm
buy
gonna
back
drop
your
this
time.
in here. I'm gonna drop this in here just in case anybody's watching. If anyone is watching this and they message me and they say, "Hey, I watched the episode with Moose. Can I have a copy of the book? I will buy you a copy of the book." Right? But
Oh, I love
we're
that. That's
gonna
awesome,
we're
John.
gonna
That's so
hide this
cool.
as a deep Easter egg in here for the singles upon singles of people who are watching this in the early days. Um, but yeah, I love that idea because, you know, otherwise, it's just going to be up to emotional thinking, right? And a lot of times it's going to lead to, well, I don't want to do this, right? And I don't want
Yeah.
to do this is usually tied to I've not done enough of this to like not be emotional about it, right? And we see this so much in on sales side, right? Like I think everybody wants to outsource sales and marketing as much as they possibly can,
Of course.
and it often comes from this place of like abdication, right? Like as opposed to real actual delegation, because they start telling themselves, right? And founders are really good at this, right? I'm not a salesperson. That's what you do, right?
Yes.
Because they say that to me, so I know they say it to you, right?
Of course.
And then it's like it's not magic though, right? They start to think that because they have not been able to convert to a yes in like 3 conversations, right?
Yeah.
That it takes a magic trick or wand or something. Like first of all, they're not even on the level about the volume that it takes, right? Let alone
Yes.
qualifying for the need, right? Because the other part of this that I think a lot of people miss out on, and I'm curious to your part on this, is like in the early stage of this stuff about being a founder, you don't want to go the transactional route at all. You want to go more relationships so that way you can figure out why they said no and what they would have said yes to and improving all of that stuff, right? Whereas the
Well,
high ticket thing, that's an end state. That's
yeah.
much later down the pipeline, right? And so all these
Yeah.
people who were thinking that sales is meant to be this like don't take no for an answer and everything, you can't have that too early stage because you got to be able to pick the brains and build the relationships and stuff. Is that have you found that to be true for your experience, or is that just me being a relationship guy anyway?
It's not just with my clientele, John, it's everybody, right? So love giving this example. Justin, when he staffed me, we had a team of 4 inside sales agents that are all virtual assistants,
Mhm.
right? We were losing about $6,000 per year per head on the inside sales team. Okay.
K per year per head, and you had
So
3?
we were losing like 24 grand a year and they had no production to show for it. Right.
Wild. Yeah. Okay.
So Justin always loves busting our chops, right? Because it took me 3 months to say, hey, Justin, I think we need to hire an inside sales team to set more appointments. And he said, oh, shit. I forgot I have an inside sales team, right? Let me introduce you. Right? I was like, hey guys, nice to meet you. Right. So
Yeah.
in that
Well,
meeting, I
and
said, hey
and
guys,
it was
what's your process?
probably right. Like if it's like most sales teams, and hopefully it wasn't there. He thinks that there's four, but there's actually two because the other two have left because they're tired of grinding through the graveyard of like old
They were
leads
just
that have just
collecting
been
their
left
hourly
there.
and just chilling, you know?
Yeah.
But when I asked them, I said, what's your process? They were like, well, we'll go to realtor.com. We'll copy a real estate agent's email address, right? Then reverse phone, look up their phone number, call them. And usually it doesn't answer. And we move on to the next one, right? That was the process. It was like, got it, got it. Okay, well, let's work on fixing this, right? I built out very simple inside sales process,
Hmm.
right? Create a lead magnet, offer the lead magnet, get people to opt in to lead magnet, confirm that they receive lead magnet, then ask, do you want to go through lead magnet on your own or can we book a call?
Yep.
Right? Very, very simple. Today, that same inside sales team, it wasn't a matter of the talent, right? That same inside, well, there's a team of 15 of them now, right?
Hmm.
But it's led by one of the guys who was there on that meeting that I first met. They booked 550 appointments last month,
Dude,
right?
there's so much to like time that like people don't think about when they're thinking about sales and stuff, right? Because
Yes.
change does not happen in an instant, right? And one of the hard things about sales hiring, right? Not even talking about selling as a founder, but like a founder trying to hire for sales because they want to get out of that seat is it takes time. Like
It takes time.
it takes longer than you think it's going to, and it definitely takes longer than that Dan Locke certified inbound closer thinks that it's going to and stuff like this, right? But by the other side, we also have seen people and talked to people who have waited too long and nothing is working, right?
Yeah.
How does someone very specifically, if a founder is trying to outsource selling, right? And let's say that they maybe have jumped the gun, they didn't benchmark it for themselves and everything, what would you tell them to be looking at to measure so that way they know what to adjust? Is there one metric? Is there one area that you think leads people in the right direction if they don't come from sales, if they've not spent a lot of time there as a focus?
And I think everybody, right, will look at conversion metric as their primary driver, right?
Hmm.
But John, if somebody hires you, right, who's coming in to redesign the entire sales process for them, et cetera, you're going to see the higher up somebody is, the longer it's going to take to experience that ROI. But when you
Absolutely.
experience that ROI, it's exponential, right? So when I got to Sphere Rock again, we were doing $3 million a year in high ticket sales, right? We went backwards the first year that Justin staffed me, right?
Hmm.
But the reason why he loved hiring me, right, was because of all the non negotiables, right? We had a team of four independent contractors that were all high ticket salespeople, right? That had no meeting cadence, no pitch deck. We had guys taking sales calls in cars. We had sales guys taking calls with the shirt off, right? Like it was just like, hey, do you want a BA? You want a BA? Awesome, $4,000. Great, let's
Yeah,
get you going, right?
absolutely. Yeah, let's go, right?
Because it was a
And
good
then
offer, we
disappear for
could
3 days.
do
Yeah.
3 million, right?
Yeah.
And then we moved to the MRR, which is great. You know this, but we get a X eval if we ever want to sell the company
Hmm.
on MRR versus
Just
maybe a
revenue.
one
Yeah.
on a high ticket, right? So I had to replace the whole team. I think the conversation that answered it, John, right? Me and Justin sat down, and one of his salespeople was his best friend from high school,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
And I sat down with Justin in his house, and I said, Justin, I hate to tell you, but I need to fire Matt, right? And his answer to me was, I would fire you if you didn't fire him, right?
That's a that's
And it
a
was just
that's a
because of my
cool moment.
attitude. So it was reestablishing the culture
Yeah.
today. Like I said, we had 4 1099 reps. I oversee a team of 40 W2 reps now, right?
That's
Um,
wild.
the culture took a complete shift. Now everybody shows up to huddles. In our world, that's, it's not part of the game, right?
Yeah.
Everybody shows up to huddles. Everybody, I measure every single call that comes through our org to make sure that our sales reps aren't overselling, right?
Hmm.
I make sure that no sales reps are walking around shirtless, right?
Yeah.
or, or whatever, right? So it was a game plan of Justin, I'm your new founder or I'm your new director,
Hmm.
right? You can expect I'm going to release everybody, right? I'm going to readapt a new culture. We're going to go backwards, right? And because we're going to go backwards, we're going to rebuild from the ground up. And I think as a C suite, if you can predict the future better than what's currently happening, that's more valuable than what you currently have.
I love that. That's
Is
very
that fair?
interesting. Yeah, for sure. Moose, I want to be super respectful of your time, so I have a couple
Yeah,
more questions for you, and then we'll let you get
sure.
back on with your day. I mean, like, thank you so much
Thanks,
for
dude.
doing this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, man. My pleasure. Thanks for having me, dude.
Absolutely. When you've been in the game for a long time, right? As a
Yeah.
salesperson and as a founder, I know you got multiple revenue streams. I'm curious, there's all these dogmas and mantras and people throwing around words of wisdom on social media. What is the one thing that you didn't appreciate until you had to like run into it yourself?
What's the one thing that I didn't appreciate until I had to run into it myself?
Yeah.
I think this is the truth, John. This is speaking more to the salespeople, right? But maybe it can be for the founders. Everybody wants growth right away. I remember sitting in my first sales role in timeshare and being like, why didn't I get the management opportunity? My numbers were better than that person,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Why was I overlooked for the role? And what you don't realize is that as your career grows, each step always leads to the next step,
Mhm.
right? It doesn't make sense while you're in it, but I can refer back to the last 14 years and know exactly why I played every single role that I played. I know why I lost or went to that $2,000 a month in income when I moved to DC and had to go and serve tables. You know
Yep.
what I mean? Each step always leads to the next step. I never appreciated that until 14 years later, which is a pain in the ass.
I can remember one time I applied for an assistant manager spot, right? I was working retail with AT&T, right? And I was like, well, maybe I should care, maybe I should try, right? And went and asked my boss, I was like, hey, am I good enough to be an assistant manager? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, okay, great. So I started applying, right? Doing some interviews and talking to them. And they were always like, well, John, you're not very charismatic. You're not very energetic, you know?
Yeah,
And I would just be like, oh, right. You don't like me because I'm
yeah,
not this person because I'm not bubbly enough. But like looking back on it, it would have been a nightmare to try to move me into it, right? And so
yeah,
there like what I'm hearing from you is like a little bit of warning, right? Like because I know a lot of salespeople who are just not cut out for leadership, right? But they come into
yeah,
sales roles with short timer mentality of like, you know, I'm just gonna grind and grind and grind because I only got to do it for a little bit,
yeah,
right? But not everyone needs to be the sales manager or the sales leader. For some people, that weight doesn't make any sense, right? If you can't
yeah,
coach, if you can't teach, if you can't manage, don't think that it's required. Don't think that it's like a mandatory step because like I've known reps that have moved up and then moved back down, right? And then sometimes you have to go change org because they don't want you to move back down out of leadership because it looks bad on the lead, you know? And so it's like don't sell yourself that like you have to go into leadership, right? And don't do it until you're really ready because you're gonna potentially damage some people's like lives and you know ability to earn if you're not really ready to be like a good leader, you know, whether that's sales and like leading yourself or moving into the founder seat and leading other people, you know.
I had
Oof.
to be my team lead, right, recently, and, he was applying to b my top rep was applying to be my team lead, and I had to tell him, I was like, "Dude, why are you like, you're not who I'm looking for, right? Like, I
Yep.
love you. I love you so
Yeah.
much. You're my top rep, dude,
Yeah, please don't leave, but like why do you even want this kind of
but
thing,
you're
right?
going
Like
to
and
slow
sometimes
down
we
your
see it.
income so much. Why would you want
Yes.
that?" You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And he's after he saw it, he's now making 25 grand a month residually with me, right? And he's
Mhm.
like, I get, but in the moment, it was, like, dude, you don't, you're not this guy,
Yep.
and you don't want to be this guy. I know you think you do, you don't,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. If you
For
don't
what it's
wanna
worth,
be that
I wish
person.
I was more like you,
Yeah,
dude. You know what I
yeah,
mean? It's like I wish I was more.
yeah. It doesn't the role isn't gonna change you, right? You have to decide that you want to be what that role requires, right?
Yeah,
And so that's where that's honestly where part of this show comes from is around this idea of like you have to show up with beginner's mind, right? And in martial arts called white belt mentality. Like you have to show up as the beginner because if you show up
yeah,
thinking that I'm smart enough and I got it all figured out and watch this, that's where you're probably gonna fail, you know?
100%. Yeah,
So
yep,
last question, Moose.
yeah,
With everyone who's, you know, you've been in the game for a while, right? And there's people
yep.
starting every day. What is the biggest word of warning you would give to someone who's starting today? Like, how would you advise them to stay on the path?
I think the most important thing is to protect your downside, right? Protect your downside. I see a lot of people who are trying to go W-2 and they're like, "Oh, I hate my corporate job, therefore I'm going to go commission only," and they've got a family and they've got kids and everything else, right?
Yep.
There's a lot of attractiveness to commission only, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you should sorta dip your toe in and like we talked about at the beginning, right?
100%.
Have your high commission sales job and then bartend at night, right? No matter what that means for bartending, right?
Yep.
So protect your downside. And then more than anything else, if you get started in the industry, is call your leads. I say that tongue in cheek because you know that's my brand.
It is your brand.
But seriously, everyone's trying to figure out, well, should I use this AI? Should I do this in the CRM? Should I do this? Everything, do it in addition to calling the leads, not in
Yeah.
replacement, because you can't replace it.
Well,
You know what
and
I mean?
there's a lesson here for people that like want to hear it because like I was thinking through kind of the story that you were talking about, and one of the things that I kind of forget to talk about is like I took a pay cut to go into medical device sales, right? I was working in finance, I was working in a bank, I had all these great licenses, I could sell anything in the banking suite that I wanted to, but I had an opportunity to go sell medical devices, and it came with a huge, big pay jump, right? Now
Yep.
it had a base, but you're trying to build some relationships to move off of the base, right? So if you're
Yep.
good enough, you get to go be commission only, right?
Sure.
And a friend of mine gave me the opportunity, and I decided that it was good enough, and I had to go get a job waiting tables, right? Because
Yeah.
I saw it as an opportunity. I knew that I couldn't afford all my bills, and we had an infant, right? I mean, she was less than a year old at the time, and so daycare,
Mm.
and my wife was working in a bookstore and not making anything, and so it's like I see this opportunity, but to take advantage of this opportunity, I need to go supplement my thing. Now, at the time, I was not thinking of it as limiting my downside, right? Like I was just
Yeah.
thinking of it as like, okay, this is what it takes to like go figure this thing out, to go learn this kind of
100%.
situation. But
Yes.
like I was working Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday morning, and then Monday morning I'm up at 4 a.m. and I'm in the
Tracking
OR trying to
sales.
talk to a doctor about screws and stuff like this, you know? And it's funny because like I talk with a lot of salespeople now, right? Especially people who are in that one boat of corporate, I hate it, I want to go high ticket. And it's like, are you ready to take a pay cut? Or can you cover your downside? Which I've never thought about it
Yes.
that way, but a lot of people get stuck in the lifestyle of sales, right? They start
Yeah.
earning a lot and then they're sold over here and then they hate their boss, they hate their offer, whatever it is, right? But they can't leave because you're living on that lifestyle, right? And now you're handcuffed to it and not even with like the good version of handcuffs, right? You just didn't spend
If you
very
can't
well.
stomach that side of it, right?
Yeah.
Don't take the risk because it's highly likely. It's highly likely, right?
Yeah.
My
It's
wife
yeah,
my
it's
wife
probably
knows
gonna
that
blow up. Yeah.
push comes to shove, I will always feed the family. You know what I mean? I don't care,
100%. Have
you
to,
know? So
right? You know,
part
and
the
like
risk.
the interesting part about this is like I was in my 30s, I already a kid whenever I was going through all this like change and everything else like this. And sometimes I think about like, man, it would have been cool if I was like 21 and finding this path and didn't have any attachment or, responsibility, but I wouldn't have done it, right? I wouldn't have had to figure it out. I would have gone and found something else to do and stuff like that. So for me, I needed the wait to really kind of like make myself like invest, figure it out, and change for what the role was. Do you think you would have been able to do it without the family weight and pressure and goals and bills?
Good question. Could I have been able to do it? Probably not, right? I love saying I would have, early on moved to the Philippines and did it, right?
Hmm.
But because I didn't have the pressure, I probably would have given up and just be like, "Nah, sorry for my
Yeah,
language.
this
Screw
got
screw that."
hard. I'm just gonna bail. Yeah,
Yeah,
interesting.
there's another opportunity. But you know what's interesting, dude, is if you listen to any rich person, right? They're always like, "Have you ever been broke?" They always say, "Yeah."
Oh yeah,
They're
yeah,
willing to take that risk, you
absolutely.
know?
Right, because now
Which is interesting.
there's this very interesting thing, right? Since we have both been here and waiting tables, like
Yeah.
this could all go up in glorious flames tomorrow. I don't think it's going to. Like something catastrophic would have to happen. But like I could go get another job waiting tables. Like I could figure it out. Like, and there's that, this is going to sound weird, but there's that lack of preciousness that enables some of the ability to like just keep moving and keep driving and keep like,
Oh,
I don't like to fail,
I
but
yeah.
like I know that I'm not going to fail absolutely, right? I might have some
Yes.
setbacks, which is
Yeah.
interesting. I've never thought about it like that before though.
It's one of my biggest fears, right? I'm like, "Okay, I made it through. I hope I don't find it again, but dude, it could happen. It
It
could
could
happen. We can
happen,
take a
right? Like
big
and
bet, you know?"
And like to me, it's that there's this old question of if you can ask yourself, am I being narcissistic? You're inherently not, right? So like if you're the
Mhm.
person who's like, could I lose all this? You're probably doing a good job of planning for it,
Yeah.
having a bigger emergency fund, war chest, however you think about it. But
Yeah.
you gotta have some stability, right? And salespeople and founders need more stability than other people do, right? We didn't even really talk about that today.
Yeah.
Moose, you're a rad person, man. Thank you so much for doing this.
You too.
Where should people come hang out with you if they want to learn more about Sphere Rocket or the work you're doing?
Facebook is always the best place, guys. Please feel free to connect with me on Facebook. Search me. It's Moose Reed. There's not too many other Moose Reeds out there. You'll see a picture of me, my wife, and my baby girl. Right. You can find me on Instagram. I don't spend too much time there, but I'm there. My social media managers are on Instagram. I'm on YouTube. So tag me. I know this is going on YouTube. So started a YouTube channel about 60 days ago. Tag me so that we can get it connected. Yeah, primarily Facebook though.
Epic. Moose, thank you so much for coming on here and doing this with us. Really appreciate it. And
Appreciate you, man.
I really do think that this is going to help some people on that founder's path, like stay in motion and stay out there on their own. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you having me.
Cheers.